What's up, guys? I'm just back again. This time we're ranking the best signings of the 2025-2026 Premier League season. We're going to go in alphabetical order of teams, and these are the best signings. These are the signings that I think were actually great hits, and we're going to then put them in a tier list on how great they were. So first we're going to go with Eze. I'm going to give Eze a B tier signing. 70 million euro. He's in his prime right now. He had 9 goals, 5 assists so far, 6 in the Prem, 6 goals in the Prem, 2 assists in the Prem. And I think when he's on the pitch, especially recently for Arsenal, he is really the one of the only sparks in that entire team. He really creates plays. One of the only players on the pitch really willing to take any sort of chances, any sort of long range shots. And I think he should be playing more probably as a left winger so they can kind of compensate Odegaard, keep Odegaard in midfield, and play Eze at left wing. Right now, they're really focusing on if Eze's playing, Odegaard's not. You could see in the Manchester City game, it was one of the first times they played Odegaard and Eze together, and Arsenal looked pretty good in that game, especially compared to the most recent games. So I think Eze's really starting to find his groove there at Arsenal, and I think next season he'll probably either start as the number 8 in Odegaard's position or he'll start as a winger, which I think he'll have double-digit goals and a good amount of assists if that were to happen. Coming up next is Hincapié, and I will also put him at B tier. He came over for about 50 million euros. It's a loan with they're going to trigger and buy. I think they already did. He has 1 goal, 2 assists so far, 33 appearances. He's had 1 or 2 injuries, which is a slight concern. But when he's on the pitch, at least defensively, he is solid. He is a rock. He works really, really hard. He's always tracking back. He's always running as hard as he possibly can. I think in attack and in possession, it's just there's a lot to be desired. And that's why I prefer Calafiori to start over Hincapié. And I think in Arsenal's best 11, that is what would happen. But in games where you are going against a very good opposition, like in a Champions League game or even against Manchester City, it seems like Arteta seems to rely on Hincapié. And again, he could slot in at left center back. He's playing left back right now. I think for 50 million euros, it's been a pretty good signing. Martin Zubimendi, in terms of good signings this summer, I would rank him as C tier. I think in the beginning half of the season, he was very good to watch. He has 5 goals, 1 assist. He scores very timely goals for Arsenal. I think the 1 assist is kind of the issue I have with him, and that's why I have him in C tier. I get he plays further back, even though a lot of the times you're seeing him really gallop forward, and it seems like he has a lot of freedom. But he's not really progressing play. He's not really passing. He's not really making any line-breaking passes. He's just not really the metronome type of 6, like a Busquets or a Vitinha that I kind of thought he was, and that he kind of was in the beginning half of the season. This latter half of the season, the second half, you don't really see him take any risks. You don't really see him make any line-breaking passes. You don't really see him do much. I'm a really big supporter of dropping him from the starting 11 and starting Declan Rice at his natural position of 6 and finding someone else to play in the midfield. Eze, Odegaard, double midfield wouldn't be opposed to me. I know the balance could maybe be a little off, but Zubimendi's been really lackluster in the second half, and that's why I'd have to put him at C tier. And then Mascara, I would also just put at C tier. I think he came over for 50 million euro. He's appeared like around 30 times for Arsenal. When he plays, you could see he's so young. He's a physical monster. He's pretty good on the ball. He has the mentality. I think, though, when you are watching him, he always has somewhat of a mistake in him. And I think that's why I put him in at C tier. Again, this is still a really good signing, but in terms of all the great signings that have happened in the Premier League this season, he's going to rank in at C tier. And next up, moving on from Arsenal going into Aston Villa, I am going to go with Lindelof, and I'm going to put him at C tier as well. I think, in terms of value, he's a free transfer, Premier League experience. He's come in for Aston Villa, who are in 4th place, challenging for the Champions League, have so many games that they were playing this year. And he's came in and made around like 25 appearances. And he just looks steady. Again, I never think Lindelof is the best performer ever, and I don't think he's the best defender ever. But on the ball, he's always very, very good. And he's been putting in pretty decent performances for Aston Villa, especially with their backline constantly injury ridden. He's always there when he needs to play, and he's always playing at a somewhat decent level. So for a free transfer, I think that's a great signing that Aston Villa made this season. One of the only ones they did. One of the only good signings. And in terms of all of the tiers, I'd put him in at C tier. Coming up next for Bournemouth is Ryan, the Brazilian winger. 28 million euro. He's made 10 appearances so far, 2 goals, 2 assists. I have to put him in that B tier. He has been playing so well. He's a breath of fresh air in the Premier League, always willing to take on his defender, always willing to try and make something happen. I think he's going to be worth so much more in 2 to 3 years, and a bigger team is going to buy him for an excessive amount of money. He is just such a great player, and I think he should have more assists than he does, just some lack of finishing around him. But I'm really, really impressed by him. He's so young as well. I think he's 19 or 20 years old. He's so young, and to come into the Premier League in the second half of the season, earn a starting spot instantly, and just put in consistent performances, it's really, really impressive. And for Alex Jimenez, I'm going to put him in also at B tier. I think he's been such a good signing for Bournemouth. He's here on a loan and 20 years old. He's made like 30 or so appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist, but works really hard, very comfortable on the ball, pretty decent defender, doesn't get beat. And I think for a position that isn't always easy to find someone to play in the Premier League, he came in and he's making the position his own. He's really doing a great job for Bournemouth, and he's helping them excel and really make this push in the second half of the season. And moving on to Junior Krupi, I'm also going to put him in at B tier. I think he's been really good this season. I think he kind of comes in waves where he performs a little better in a couple games, and he kind of falls off some games. But he's had a large amount of very, very nice goals. He scored very, very important, timely goals, and a lot of them are beautiful goals. 15 million euro. He's only 19 years old. Again, this is another player for the future. You'd assume he's going to be sold for such a large profit. But I think he can get on the ball a little bit more. He can make a little bit better of decisions. That's why he's not in A tier. But for 15 million euro, 10 goals in the Premier League, it's just, you can't ask for more. And now moving on to some Brentford signings. First, I'm going to go with Jordan Henderson, and I'm going to put him in at C tier. Think this was such a smart signing. You want some Premier League experience. You got rid of Wissa, you got rid of Mbeumo, you got rid of Norgard, you got rid of so many players on your team that were so important and that most of the Premier League experience in your squad, and you replace that with a player that has 10 plus years of Premier League experience for, I think the fee was either free or it was like a 2 million euro fee, but I'm pretty sure it was free. He's made 30 or so appearances, gotten a goal, 3 assists. Again, he's not there to get you goals and assists. He's there to control the game and just work really hard. And I think he's done that. And I think he's helped Brentford have a pretty impressive season. Most people were not predicting it. I know I wasn't. I was predicting him to have I was predicting Brentford to barely fight relegation, to just survive. And they're doing much better than that. Moving now to Coyote, which is going to be the first A-tier signing. 17 million euro transfer, 21 years old. He has 1 goal, 1 assist. He is a long throw demon. His long throws are insane. They create so much havoc for Brentford. It's really a good tool for them. It's how they get so many opportunities. And he works so hard. He's such a good athlete, physical specimen. And he just really understands position, good on the ball. I personally thought he should have been in the Italian squad, and that might be why they didn't qualify for the World Cup, is because they weren't willing to take chances on youth like Coyote. And I think he's been so impressive. He's part of the reason why Brentford's having such a great season, and that's why I put him in A tier. Moving on next is going to be Jaden Anthony, and he's going to be another C tier signing. Again, Burnley is not having the best season. I don't think many people predicted them to have that great of a season. Most people probably predicted them to go down, but Jaden Anthony has came over for 9 million euros, 8 goals, 1 assist. He's really been one of the few sparks in the team, one of the few outlets, one of the few constant performers, and I really think he's had a pretty great Premier League season. I think he might earn himself a move to a Premier League club when Burnley get relegated. But even if he doesn't, Jaden Anthony can perform in the championship, and I think he'd be a great championship signing. So him staying with Burnley in the championship, he'll score double-digit goals, probably double-digit assists, and help them probably push for promotion, get back to the Premier League. Moving on now to some Chelsea signings. I'm going to first talk about João Pedro. I think he was a 64 million euro signing. He has 22 goals, 6 assists in the entire season, 14 goals in the Premier League. I think he's had a really good first season, and I didn't predict them to do this well. I didn't predict them to score this many goals. I think João Pedro is such a good player, and he's so versatile. He plays left wing, he plays attacking mid, he plays right wing, he'll play at striker. He will really play across that entire front four. And I think that's his benefit, but then I also think sometimes that's his downside because he's always playing in different positions and he is so versatile. He almost doesn't score as much as he should, but I think this season he's really done that. I think my only issue with him again is he does kind of fade. Again, it comes in waves, these goals. And a lot of the goals I feel like there's games where they're not the most decisive goals. They aren't goals that are winning you a game and winning you 3 points, which is why Chelsea's starting to fall off so hard. But I think for 64 million euro, especially the striker signings made this summer, so many of them have just been lackluster. João Pedro in the Premier League has done a really good job. Moving on next to Estevan, I'm going to put him in at D tier. Again, I think when he beginning of the season, he was a spark to watch and he was really exciting and I really loved watching him play. Again, kind of like Ryan, he really was a breath of fresh air, always taking on his defender. He's 45 million euros, so a decent fee, 18 years old. He has 8 goals this season, but only 2 in the Prem. I think he's going to be a very good player, and I think in a year or two he'll be a B or an A tier player. But in this current moment, again, he gets injured. He's not always starting. It's not really down to him, but he's not consistently starting, and he just hasn't produced too much in the Premier League as of yet. And I think he can just do better. I think this season's kind of been a lot of stop and start for him. I think in the future, again, we'll see him as a better player. He'll be one of the best in the world. But for now, although I think it's a great signing, it's a D tier signing for the great tier. Moving on next to the only Crystal Palace signing of this summer that I rated as a good transfer, and that is Canvo. And Canvo is a 2 million euro fee, 19 years old. In the beginning of the season, most of the season, they weren't depending on him to play, and they probably weren't expecting on him to play as much as he has. But the second half of the season, he's really stepped into that back three. He's played really, really well. His most recent games have been really, really impressive. Pretty comfortable on the ball, physical specimen. And again, 2 million euro fee, 19 years old. Can't go wrong with that. I think I'm only putting him in at C tier because he hasn't played as many games as you'd expect. I don't think they were expecting him to play that much. And I think next year he'll be really, really impressive and get more games and more of a chance to prove himself. Now we're moving on to Everton, and I'm going to put Dewsbury Hall in as a B tier signing. He was 28 million euros. He has 7 goals, 4 assists, and he's 27 years old. He's in his prime. I like this signing so much because I've always thought Kieran Dewsbury Hall is a good player, especially when he was at Leicester. I always thought he's an above average 10 in the Prem. And when he moved to Chelsea and they never even really gave him a chance, it was so surprising to me. But moving over to Everton, being able to get consistent minutes, you see a lot of the attack goes through him, and he's just so intelligent on the ball. And I think why I love this signing so much is because, again, he is only 27 years old. This is a signing that, at least for the next 3 seasons, he will continuously give you double-digit goals and assists. And for a team like Everton, that's all you're looking for. And you don't have a lot of those types of players. So I really, really love the signing for Everton. And I think he's, again, part of the reason why they're having such a great season.